Have you ever heard of a hole so deep it has no bottom? A place where anything you throw in just falls forever. This isn't just a spooky campfire story. It's a legend that haunted the early days of the internet, known as Mel's Hole. The story begins in 1997, when a man named Mel Waters called into the Coast to Coast AM radio show. He claimed to have a mysterious pit on his property near Monastash Ridge in Washington. This wasn't just any hole. Mel described it as being over 9 feet wide and, according to him, bottomless. He said he'd lowered a weighted fishing line down, spooling out over 80,000 feet. That's more than 15 miles, without hitting anything. The line just kept going, but that was just the beginning of the weirdness. Mel claimed the hole had strange, almost supernatural properties. For one, no one ever heard anything hit the bottom. He once tried tossing an old refrigerator into it, and it just vanished into the silence. Even stranger animals seemed to instinctively avoid the area. Mel's dogs would refuse to go near the pit. The most bizarre part of his story involved a local resident whose dog had died. The man, overcome with grief, brought the dog's body to the hole and dropped it in. A few days later, that same dog was seen alive and well, trotting through the woods nearby. But it was different. It seemed off. It wouldn't respond to its owner and acted like a wild animal. Mel suggested that whatever was down in that hole had the power to bring things back, but not as they were. Then there was the radio incident. Mel said he held a portable AM radio near the hole's opening. As he got closer, the radio would pick up strange broadcasts. The music would change to something old and out of date, and voices would come through that were speaking in a language no one could identify. It was as if the hole was a portal to another time or dimension. The story got even wilder. Mel claimed a black, solid beam of light would occasionally shoot out from the hole into the night sky, like a pillar of pure darkness. He said the US government eventually found out about the hole, seized his property under eminent domain, and paid him a hefty sum to leave the country and never speak of it again. For a while, Mel disappeared, supposedly living in Australia on the government's dime. Naturally, this story captured the imagination of thousands. People were fascinated and terrified. Was it real? Could a bottomless pit actually exist? Internet forums and paranormal enthusiasts went into a frenzy. Sleuths and adventurers tried to locate Mel's hole, but no one could ever find it. The coordinates Mel gave seemed to lead to nowhere. Geologists chimed in, stating that a hole of that depth was geologically impossible on Earth. The planet's internal heat and pressure would cause any such shaft to collapse long before it reached 15 miles deep. So, was Mel Waters just a masterful storyteller, a prankster who spun an incredible yarn for a late-night radio audience? Almost certainly, yes. There's no credible evidence that Mel's hole ever existed. No public records of a Mel Waters owning land in that area. No government seizure. Nothing. It was a fantastic piece of modern folklore, perfectly tailored for the dawn of the internet age. But here's where the story takes a turn from fiction to a terrifying reality. While a supernatural, bottomless pit might not be real, humans have created their own versions of Mel's hole all over the world. And these holes are, in many ways, far scarier. Let's talk about the Berkeley Pit in Butte, Montana. This isn't a mysterious natural phenomenon. It's a former open-pit copper mine. From the air, it looks like a wound on the face of the earth. The pit is over a mile long, half a mile wide, and more than 1,700 feet deep. After the mine closed in 1982, the pumps that kept it dry were turned off. Groundwater began to seep back in, and it's been filling up ever since. But this isn't clean, fresh water. As it filled the pit, the water dissolved the heavy metals and toxic chemicals left behind from the mining operations. We're talking about arsenic, cadmium, zinc, and sulfuric acid. The water in the Berkeley Pit is now so acidic, its pH is around 2.5, about the same as lemon juice or stomach acid. It is a vibrant, deceptively beautiful lake of poison. Nothing can survive in it. There have been horrific incidents. In 1995, a flock of 342 snow geese landed on the pit, seeking rest during their migration. They never left. The toxic water killed them all. The event was a national tragedy and a stark wake-up call. More recently, in 2016, thousands more geese landed on the lake, and while many were scared off by loud noises and spotlights, An estimated 3,000 to 4,000 perished. The Barkley Pit is a bottomless pit of a different kind. It's an environmental catastrophe with seemingly no end. The water level continues to rise, and there's a real danger that it could eventually contaminate the local groundwater supply for the entire city of Butte. Scientists are working on solutions, but it's a monumental task. This hole isn't a gateway to another dimension. It's a direct portal to the consequences of our own actions. And it's not the only one. Consider the Murny Mine in Siberia, Russia. This is another man-made chasm, an open-pit diamond mine that's so vast, it creates its own weather. The giant hole, over 1,700 feet deep and nearly 4,000 feet wide, generates a downward airflow so powerful that helicopters are forbidden from flying over it for fear of being sucked in. Imagine that a hole so big it has its own gravitational pull on aircraft. The mine is now inactive, but the colossal scar on the landscape remains, a silent testament to human ambition. Then there's the Bingham Canyon Mine in Utah, one of the largest man-made excavations in the world. It's so big, it's visible from space. This pit is over half a mile deep and 2.5 miles wide. It's an active copper mine, a moving, evolving chasm that is constantly being reshaped by massive machinery. In 2013, it was the site of one of the largest non-volcanic landslides in history, when a massive wall of the pit collapsed, sending millions of cubic tons of rock and earth crashing down. These real-life holes might not have paranormal properties, like hole. You won't find a black beam of light or resurrected pets, but what you will find is something arguably more frightening. A permanent, toxic legacy. They are symbols of our relentless consumption and the price the planet pays for it. The legend of Mel's Hole went viral because it tapped into a primal fear, the fear of the unknown, of the dark, of falling into an abyss from which there is no return. It mixed the paranormal with a hint of a government conspiracy, creating the perfect recipe for a modern myth. The visuals it conjures are dark, infinite pit swallowing everything without a sound are deeply unsettling and captivating. But the truth is, the real horror isn't in a fictional bottomless pit. It's in the pits we've dug ourselves. The Barkley Pit, the Murny Mine, Bingham Canyon, these are Mel's holes. be.busta. They are dangerous, and they are filled not with supernatural mysteries, but with very real poisons that will haunt us for generations. They are bottomless pits of environmental consequence. The story of Mel's Hole serves as a fascinating piece of folklore, but it's also an unintentional allegory. We are drawn to the mystery of a hole with no bottom, while often ignoring the terrifyingly real chasms we've created right here on the surface. These man-made pits don't need ghosts or aliens to be scary. Their reality is frightening enough. They show us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we create ourselves. So the next time you hear a story about a bottomless pit, remember that while the supernatural version is likely just a story, the real ones are out there. They are deep, they are dangerous, and they are a problem that has no easy solution. The abyss is real, but it's not under some mysterious ridge in Washington. It's in Montana, Siberia, and Utah, and it's staring right back at us.
You're driving home. It's late, way past midnight. Rain is streaking across your windshield, turning the city lights into a blurry river of neon. You're tired, your mind is numb, and all you can think about is your warm bed. You glance at the fuel gauge, almost empty. Great, just what you needed. You pull into the only gas station that's still open, a lonely island of buzzing fluorescent light in the dark. The attendant is a quiet guy, a little strange. He fumbles with the pump, his eyes darting around nervously. He seems more interested in your car than in his job. As he's processing your card, he tells you there's a problem with it and you need to come inside. You're annoyed, but you get out of the car and follow him into the small, grimy office. The second the door clicks shut behind you, he locks it. Your heart hammers against your ribs. He grabs you by the arm, his face pale with fear. He's not looking at you, but past you, towards your car. There's someone in your back seat. That's the story, right? The classic urban legend? The killer in the back seat. We've all heard it, huddled around a campfire, or whispered at a sleepover. It's a tale that taps into our most primal fears: vulnerability, the unknown, and the terrifying idea that danger can be right behind us, unseen. For decades, this story has been a cornerstone of modern folklore. a ghost story for the age of the automobile. But what if I told you that this legend, and all its terrifying variations, isn't just a story? What if the line between fiction and a horrifying reality is much, much thinner than we think? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of this myth. We'll start with the legend, but then we're going to crack the rearview mirror and look at the cold, hard facts it reflects. Let's go back to that rainy night. In another version of the tale, there's no gas station attendant. You're just driving. But you notice a truck behind you. It's driving erratically, tailgating you 1 second, then dropping back the next. Every so often, the driver flashes their high beams, blinding you. You get angry, then scared. Are they drunk? Is this road rage? You speed up, trying to lose them, but the truck sticks to you like glue. You take a sharp turn, then another, your tires squealing on the wet asphalt. The high beams keep flashing, a relentless, terrifying pattern. Finally, you see the familiar lights of your own neighborhood, pull into your driveway, heart pounding, and slam the car into park. You jump out ready to confront this maniac, but the truck driver isn't looking at you. He's pointing at your car, his face a mask of terror. Get out now, he screams. And as you turn, you see it. The back door of your car creaks open, and a shadowy figure slips out and disappears into the night. The truck driver explains he wasn't trying to harass you. He kept flashing his lights because every time he did, you could see a man with a knife rising up from your back seat ready to attack. The bright light was the only thing making him duck back down. Chilling, isn't it? This version is a masterclass in suspense. It turns a savior into a perceived threat, playing with our expectations. The flashing lights, the aggressive driving it, all points to one thing, but the reality is something else entirely. The story works because it feels plausible. We've all been unnerved by another driver on a dark road. We've all felt that prickle of unease when we're alone in our car at night. The car, our personal metal shell, is supposed to be a safe space, an extension of our home. This legend shatters that illusion, turns our private sanctuary into a trap. And it's this violation of safety that makes the story so effective and so enduring. It has been told and retold, adapted into movies, TV shows, and campfire tales for generations. Each telling adds a new detail, a new twist, but the core fear remains the same, the danger you don't see. But now it's time to shift gears. Let's step away from the neon-drenched legend and into the stark, grainy reality of true crime. The rearview mirror cracks, and the illusion shatters with it. The truth is, while the exact scenarios of the urban legend are unconfirmed folklore, the core element and attacker hiding in a car is terrifyingly real. Police reports from across the country document numerous cases where criminals have used this exact method. They target unlocked cars in parking lots, residential streets, anywhere they can slip in unnoticed and wait for the owner to return. It's a crime of opportunity, brutal in its simplicity. Let's look at the psychology behind this. Why is this specific scenario so horrifying? It ties into something called the near-miss phenomenon.
The news.
The woman in the story was moments from death, saved only by a stranger's intervention. This idea of a close call, of a fate narrowly avoided, is profoundly unsettling. It reminds us of our own mortality and the thin veil of chance that separates a normal day from a tragedy. This resonates with infamous cases that have haunted the public consciousness. Think of the bystander effect. Famously, though controversially, associated with the Kitty Genovese case in 1964. The original narrative was that dozens of people heard her screams but did nothing, assuming someone else would help. While the facts of that case are more complex, the story it created lodged itself in our collective psyche. The fear of being alone and helpless, even when surrounded by others. The killer in the Backseat legend flips this. Here, a stranger is your only hope. Now, consider the perpetrators. Serial predators like Ted Bundy were known for their cunning methods of luring victims. While Bundy famously used a fake cast and a friendly demeanor, his core strategy was to exploit trust and create a situation where his victims felt safe. He was a master of turning a normal interaction into a deadly trap. The concept of an attacker hiding in a car fits perfectly into this predatory pattern. It's about gaining access to a victim in a controlled environment where they are at their most vulnerable. There have been documented incidents that are eerily similar to the legend. In the 1960s, stories circulated about an Air Force sergeant in Utah who followed a woman for miles flashing his lights. When she finally stopped, he warned her of the man in her back seat. While this specific account is often cited as a possible origin for the legend, its verification remains murky, blurring the line between fact and folklore. But other cases are tragically clear. Reports from local news outlets over the years detail assaults and carjackings that began with an assailant hiding in the back of a victim's vehicle. In one case, a woman returned to her car in a mall parking lot. She drove for several minutes before a man emerged from the back and forced her to drive to an ATM. The only difference between her story and the legend is that there was no helpful truck driver. There was no last-minute rescue. This is the sobering truth. The legend acts as a cautionary tale, a memorable and thrilling way to deliver a very real safety message. Lock your doors, be aware of your surroundings, check your backseat. It sounds simple, almost cliché, but it's advice born from real-life tragedies. The story persists not just because it's scary, but because it's useful. It's a piece of cultural programming, a meme that spreads a survival tip disguised as entertainment. In a way, the killer in the backseat legend is a public service announcement that has gone viral for over half a century. So, the next time you get into your car late at night and you hear that story echo in the back of your mind, don't just dismiss it as a silly ghost story. Let it be a reminder. Take a second. Look over your shoulder. Check the back seat, because the legend might just be a stylized, neon-soaked version of a very stark and very real danger. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled wasn't convincing the world he didn't exist. It was convincing you he wasn't in your back seat.
Do you remember Slender Man? That tall, faceless figure in a black suit, lurking in the shadows of the early internet. He wasn't real, of course. It was born in 2009 on a forum called Something Awful, a Photoshop contest to create paranormal images. The user who created him, Eric Knudsen, posted 2 black and white photos of children with this eerie figure in the background. He gave him a name, the Slender Man. And with that, a legend was born. From those 2 simple images, a whole mythology erupted. He was a creature who stalked children, a mysterious entity with tentacle-like arms. People started writing stories about him, creating short films, video games. It was a collaborative horror project, a modern-day campfire tale for the digital age. This was the era of creepypasta internet horror stories that felt just real enough to give you chills. Slender Man became the undisputed king of this genre. His mythos grew. His appearance became more defined. His motives more terrifying. He was everywhere. On forums, in YouTube videos, with distorted audio and grainy footage, and in the popular indie game, Slender. The 8 pages, where your only goal was to find 8 notes before he caught you. The line between fiction and reality was part of the fun. People would debate his origins, share sightings, and add to his lore. It was a shared nightmare we all willingly participated in. The fear was thrilling because we all knew, deep down, that it wasn't real. It was just a story. A meme. A monster made of pixels and code. But for some, that line became dangerously blurred. For 2 young girls in Waukesha, Wisconsin, the fiction became a terrifying reality. This is where our story takes a dark turn. We need to leave the world of internet forums and enter a real-life courtroom. On May 31st, 2014, 2 dozy-year-old girls, Anissa Ware and Morgan Geyser, lured their friend Peyton Leutner, also dozy, into the woods. What happened next was unthinkable. Peyton was stabbed 19 times and left for dead. Miraculously, she survived. When the police found Anissa and Morgan walking along a highway hours later, they asked them where they were going. Their answer was chilling. They were going to find Slender Man. Let's rewind. How did we get here? How did a fictional internet monster lead to a real-life attempted murder? We have to look at the friendship between Anissa and Morgan. Anissa was a lonely kid, struggling to fit in. She found a friend in Morgan, who was also an outsider. They bonded over their shared interests, and one of those interests was Slender Man. For them, he wasn't just a story. They believed he was real, and they believed he was watching them. Their belief became an obsession. They spent hours on the creepypasta wiki, consuming every story, every piece of evidence they could find. In their minds, Slender Man wasn't just a monster. He was a powerful being who could protect their families. But his protection came at a price. They believed that to prove their loyalty and become his proxies, or servants, they had to kill someone. They had to make a sacrifice. The plan was hatched over months. They decided their victim would be their friend, Peyton. The original plan was to attack her during a sleepover at Morgan's house. They would tape her mouth shut in her sleep and stab her in the neck. But when the time came, Anissa hesitated. They decided to wait. The next morning, they suggested going to a nearby park to play hide-and-seek. It was there, in the woods, that the plan was carried out. Morgan was the one who held the knife. Anissa, according to her testimony, encouraged her. Peyton was stabbed in her arms, legs, and torso. One wound missed a major artery near her heart by less than a millimeter. After the attack, Anissa and Morgan simply walked away, leaving Peyton to bleed out in the woods. They truly believed that after this act, Slender Man would appear to them, and they would go live with him in his mansion, which they thought was located somewhere in Wisconsin's Chiquamagani-Colette National Forest. But Peyton didn't die. Fueled by an incredible will to live, she crawled out of the woods and onto a path where a cyclist found her. She was rushed to the hospital and, against all odds, she survived. Her recovery was long and difficult, both physically and emotionally. She endured multiple surgeries and lives with permanent scars, but her strength is nothing short of heroic. Meanwhile, the police investigation revealed the bizarre motive. When questioned, Anissa and Morgan calmly explained their belief in Slender Man. Their interrogation tapes are surreal. They talk about him as if he were a real person. Anissa told the detective, "I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't." They feared Slender Man would harm them or their families if they failed to follow his command. The case went to court, and the legal battle was complex. The core question was, were these girls evil, or were they mentally ill? Could a 12-year-old truly distinguish between the fantasy of the internet and the reality of their actions? The defense argued that they were suffering from a shared delusion. Morgan Geyser was later diagnosed with early onset schizophrenia, a severe mental illness that can cause hallucinations and delusional thinking. Anissa Ware was diagnosed with a delusional disorder. This diagnosis was a turning point. It wasn't that they were just impressionable kids who took a story too far. They were grappling with serious mental health conditions that warped their perception of reality. The internet didn't create their illness, but it provided the specific content for their delusions to latch onto. Slender Man became the central figure in their distorted world. The court had to decide if they should be tried as adults or, due to the severity of the crime, they were tried in adult court. The jury's task was not to determine guilt or innocence of the act itself. That was clear, but to determine their mental responsibility. Were they criminally responsible for their actions? In the end, the juries found both girls not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. This meant they wouldn't go to a traditional prison. Instead, they were committed to state mental health institutions. Anissa Ware was sentenced to a maximum of 25 years in a mental hospital. Morgan Geyser, who wielded the knife and was diagnosed with the more severe illness, was sentenced to a maximum of 40 years. The aftermath of this case sent ripples across the internet and the world. It forced a conversation about children's access to unfiltered online content, the nature of belief, and the critical importance of mental health care. The creator of Slender Man, Eric Knudsen, released a statement expressing his deep sympathy for the families affected by the tragedy. The creepypasta community was also horrified. They were writers and fans of horror fiction, not advocates for real-world violence. The website's administrators posted reminders that the stories were works of fiction. The case became a cautionary tale, a dark intersection of youthful minds, undiagnosed mental illness, and the immersive world of internet folklore. It showed how a fictional narrative, when filtered through the lens of a vulnerable and unwell mind, could have devastating real-world consequences. So, where are they now? Anissa Ware was granted conditional release in 2021 after spending 4 years in the institution. She is now in her early 20s and must adhere to strict conditions, including GPS monitoring and restricted internet access. Morgan Geyser remains committed to a mental health facility. Patan Lutner has spoken publicly about her experience, showing incredible resilience and courage. She has focused on her education and moving forward with her life, refusing to be defined by the trauma she endured. The Slender Man stabbing is a tragedy with multiple victims. It's a story about the profound impact of mental illness and the importance of recognizing its signs. If you or someone you know is struggling, please know that help is available. There are resources and people who want to support you. This story isn't just a piece of internet history. It's a powerful reminder to look after one another, to take mental health seriously, and to remember the human beings behind the headlines. Thanks for watching.